Okay? Picture this, you're chilling on your couch, scrolling TikTok, probably watching some dude yeet a burrito into a ceiling fan for clout. When, bum, a time vortex rips through your living room, no warning, no cool CGI. Just a cosmic fart that yeets you straight into 1944, smack dab in the middle of World War II. Congrats, you're now the least prepared human in history. Dropped into a war zone with nothing but your phone, a dead battery. Obviously in the fashion sense of a clearance rack influencer. Welcome to You Couldn't Survive a Day in a WRW, where we're about to prove you be toast faster than a pop, tart in a microwave. First up, you're in some muddy European field, probably France, because that's where all the dramatic war movies happen. It's raining because of course it is, and you're wearing flip-flops and a yow tank top genius. You hear distant booms, like not bass, heavy EDM booms, but oh crap, that's artillery booms. Your first thought, is this a LARPy? Nope, buddy, this is the real deal, and you're about to flunk history class in the most humiliating way possible. You stumble toward a trench because trenches are iconic, right? Wrong. You slip in mud that smells like despair and last week's chowder. Face planting in front of a squad of grizzled soldiers who look like they chew nails for breakfast. They're staring at you like you're a TikTok prank gone wrong.
Hi.
Who's this wonker? One barks, his accent so thick it's basically a war crime. You try to explain you're from 2025, but your vibes-based vocabulary ain't cutting it. Bruh, I'm just trying to eat back to Wi-Fi, you whine, and they think you're a spy. Great start, champ. They toss you a rifle, some clunky, rusty thing that weighs more than your ego, and tell you to mend the line. You're like, what, like a conga line? Nope, the front line, where people shoot at you for fun. You've never held a gun, unless you count that time you panic, bought a Nerf blaster during a Black Friday sale. The rifle's manual is in, like hieroglyphics, and you're pretty sure you're holding it upside down. Meanwhile, the soldiers are chained, smoking cigarettes that smell like burning regret and swapping stories about dames and dysentery. You try to bond by offering your vape pen, but they look at you like you just farted the Star-Spangled Banner. Suddenly a whistle blows, because apparently that's how wars work. Ain't a frickin' gym class, and everyone scrambles. Krots incoming? Someone yells, you're like, Krots, is that a band? No, dummy, it's the enemy. And they're about to turn you into Swiss cheese. You peek over the trench, expecting some Call of Duty action, but all you see is fog, mud, and your life flashing before your eyes. Spoiler, it's mostly you arguing with bots on X about pineapple on pizza. You're not ready for this. Nobody is. But buckle up, because this day's about to get dumber, dirtier, and way more dangerous. Stay tuned for part 2, where you learn the hard way that rations aren't just low battery mode for your stomach. So you're still alive, barely, crouching in this trench that smells like a porta potty at a chili cook-off. The soldiers around you are yelling about Jerry's and covering fire, but you're too busy Googling how to not die in WA. In your head, which, surprise, has no signal. Your flip-flops are now one with the mud, and your yo tank top is basically a bullseye for every sniper in a 10-mile radius. The squad leader, a guy with a mustache that screams, I punch Nazis for fun, shoves a tin can in your hands. Eat up, newbie, he grunts. You pop it open expecting, like Chef Boyardee, but it's a grayish blob that looks like sadness had a baby with oatmeal. What's this? You ask, gagging. Rations? He says like you're the idiot. You're like, brew, my cat eats better than this. But you take a bite because hunger is the real MVP. It tastes like regret and gym socks, and you're pretty sure it's moving. You try to flex your Gen Z charm, cracking a joke about how this is low-key giving dystopian vibes. But the soldiers just stare, probably wondering if you're speaking in code. Then, plot twist, you hear a whistle. Not the fun kind from a Disney movie, but the incoming shells kind. Leo! The ground shakes and you scream like you just saw a spider in the shower. Jet down, mustache man yells, but you're already eating dirt, literally. Shrapnel's flying, and you're praying to the Wi-Fi gods for a miracle. You crawl behind a crate, thinking it's cover, but it's just a stack of soggy letters from Soldier's Sweetheart. Romantic, sure, but useless against bullets. You peek out, and holy crap, there's actual fighting happening. Like not TikTok dance battle fighting, but people are dying, fighting. You're supposed to shoot back, but your rifle's still upside down, and you're low-key hoping someone else handles this. Spoiler. They don't. A soldier next to you who looks 12 but chained, smokes like he's 80, hands you a grenade. He yells. You're like, shuck, like, my X6, dog. But you get it anyway, except you forgot to pull the pin, so it just lands like a sad potato. The kid face palms so hard he probably concussed himself. You're gonna get us killed! He screams. Fair point, you try again, pull the pin this time and toss it straight into a tree. It bounces back. Cue everyone diving for cover while you apologize like you just spilled Starbucks on their laptop. Miraculously, it doesn't blow you up, but the enemy's closing in. And you're officially the squad's liability. Mustache Man grabs you by the collar. You're on latrine duty if you don't shape up? Latrine. You're like, is that a band? Nope, it's the poop pit, and you're about to become its VIP. The gunfire's getting louder, and you're realizing DWG isn't just gritty Instagram filters. It's gritty everything. Your phone's still dead, your stomach's staging a coup, and you're pretty sure you're allergic to war. But don't worry, it gets worse. Stick around for part 3, where you discover foxholes aren't just for TikTok thirst traps, and your survival odds drop faster than your follower count after a bad tweet. You're still here, somehow, shivering in a trench that's basically a swamp with extra PTSD. Your yellow tank top is now HELP tank top, caked in mud and shame. The gunfire's so close you're pretty sure your eardrums are filing for divorce, and Mustache Man screaming at you to dig in. You're like, did I? With what? My vibes. He tosses you a shovel that's rusty than your Tinder game and points to a patch of dirt. Foxhole now. He barks. You start digging, but it's less heroic soldier and more toddle with a plastic spoon. The ground's harder than your last math test, and you're whining about needing a Starbucks break. The kid soldier, let's call him Smokey Mateen, rolls his eyes so hard they might pop out. Mate, you're softer than a dame's knickers, he says, which you're pretty sure is an insult, but you're too busy not dying to care. You finally carve out a sad little hole, more like a pothole than a foxhole, and dive in just as bullets start zipping overhead. You're curled up, hugging your useless rifle, thinking, this is now to the glow up I signed up for. Smokey's in the hole next to you, firing like he's in a John Wick sequel, while you're just praying your Spotify rap doesn't end with taps. You try to help by shouting, ceasefire. Let's talk this out, but the enemy's not exactly vibing with your conflict resolution to talk. A bullet grazes your foxhole, and you scream so loud you probably woke up Hitler. Man up, Mustache Man yells, but you're too busy checking if you peed yourself, a spoiler you did. Then, because this day hates you, it starts raining harder, turning your foxhole into a kiddie pool of despair. You're soaked, your teeth are chattering, and you're pretty sure you're catching trench foot or trench butt, or whatever medieval disease this is. Smokey tosses you a cigarette, probably to shut you up, but you're like, bruh, I only jewel. He looks at you like you just confessed to eating glue. You try to light it anyway, but the match fizzles out. Because even fire's done with your nonsense. Suddenly there's a lull in the shooting and Mustache Man whispers, they're flanking. You're like, flanking. Is that like a TikTok trend? No, idiot. It means the enemy's sneaking around to screw you over from the side. You're told to hold the line, but you're holding nothing but your last shred of dignity. You peek out, see shadows moving in the fog, and panic. Yet another grenade. Pin pulled this time, thank God. It actually lands somewhere useful, and there's a distant boom. Smokey gives you a nod like, not bad, dumbass, and you're low, key proud until you realize you're out of grenades and still very much in a war. Mustache Man's barking orders, but you're distracted by your stomach growling louder than the artillery. That ration blob from earlier is staging a prison break in your guts. And you're one bad bounce away from a biohazard. You're thinking, if I die, at least I won't have to dig more holes. But the universe isn't that kind. Stick around for part 4 where you learn Kraken isn't just scouting for Wi-Fi signals and your survival odds plummet faster than a Crypto Bros portfolio. You're still not dead, which is honestly a plot twist nobody saw coming. Your foxhole's now a muddy jacuzzi, and you're shivering like a chihuahua in a snowstorm. Your tank top is basically a dish rag, and your flip-flops are MIA, probably living their best life in a puddle somewhere. Mustache Man's got this wild glint in his eye, like he's about to send you on a suicide mission or ask for your OnlyFans. Reckon. He barks, pointing at you. You're scouting the ridge? You're like, Scout. Bro, I get lost in Walmart. But he's not asking. He's telling. And Smokey Mateen's snickering like he knows you're screwed. They hand you a map that looks like it was drawn by a drunk toddler and a compass that's just a fancy paperweight. Find the enemy's position, Mustache Man says, and don't cock it up. You nod, but you're already cocking it up by tripping over your own shovel. You slink out of the trench, feeling like a discount Indiana Jones. Except instead of a whip, you've got a rifle you still don't know how to use. The fog's thicker than your ex's excuses, and every twig snap makes you jump like you're in a horror flick. You're whispering to yourself, just vibe, but the only vibe is compending doom. You trip over a root, eat dirt for the 17th time, and realize you're holding the map upside down. Classic you. Suddenly, you hear voices. German, because of course it's German, this ain't a bilingual book club. You freeze, praying your low battery. Aura makes you invisible. They're close. Joking about something, probably your outfit, and you're one loud fart away from being a palo. You try to crawl away, but your stomach's like, nah. Let's remix that ration blob. The burgling is so loud it's basically a sonar ping. You clamp a hand over your butt because dignity's already on life support. Miraculously, the Germans move on, and you're not captured. Yet, you stumble onto the ridge, see some vague shapes that might be tanks or, like really aggressive cows, and decide that's good enough for recon. You haul ass back to the trench, slipping in mud and cursing every war movie that made this look cool. You report back to Mustache Man, panting like you ran a marathon, Tex, or cows? Maybe both. You gasp. He stares at you like you just invented stupidity. Smokey's laughing so hard he's coughing up cigarette ash. You're useless, Mustache Man growls. But there's no time to roast you properly because, surprise, the enemy's launching a full-on attack. Shells are raining down, and you're back in your sad foxhole, wondering if you can Venmo someone to end this. You try to shoot your rifle, but it jams, probably because it hates you as much as you hate it. Smokey tosses you a clip, yelling, "Load it, moron." You fumble, drop it in the mud, and now everyone's screaming at you like you're the reason they're losing. Spoiler, you kind of are. The enemy's closing in, and you're realizing Krekon was just a fancy word for go be a target. Hang tight for part 5, where you discover retreat isn't just ghosting your responsibilities, and your survival odds tank harder than a bad Netflix reboot. You're still kicking, which is frankly an insult to natural selection. Your foxhole's a swampy nightmare, and you're soaked, starving, and pretty sure you're left foot staging a mutiny. The enemy's charging like they've got a personal vendetta, and your squad's screaming about holding the line, while you're just holding your bowels, praying that ration blob doesn't stage an encore. Mustache Man's barking orders, Smokey Mateen's firing like he's got unlimited ammo, and you're still trying to unjam your rifle, which is now more mud than metal. You're like, bro, I'd kill for an IKEA manual right now. Spoiler, IKEA doesn't exist yet, and neither does your will to live. Suddenly, Mustache Man yells, "And you, Drake? I've been retreating from adulting since high school, but this ain't ghosting a group chat. This is running for your life through a hail of bullets and explosions." You scramble out of the foxhole, slipping in mud like it's an Olympic sport, and sprint after the squad. Your bare feet are screaming, your tank top's flapping like a surrender flag, and you're low-key wondering if you can fake your death and just vibe in a ditch. The enemy's gaining, and you hear something whiz past your ear. Yep, that's a bullet, not a mosquito. You scream, "I'm too young to die. I haven't even gone viral." But the universe doesn't care about your clout. You trip over a rock, because of course you do, and eat dirt for the millionth time. Smokey yanks you up, muttering, "You're more trouble than a dame in a gin joint." You're too busy wheezing to ask what that means. The squad's hauling ass toward a forest, which sounds like cover but is probably just a new place to die. You're running, dodging shells, and realizing cardio is not your brand. Your lungs are like, "Where he signed up for Netflix binges, not this." You dive behind a tree, panting, and notice your squad's down a few guys. That's not a plot twist you're ready for. Mustache Man's yelling to regroup, but you're just trying not to puke up that cursed ration. You whisper, "Is this where we do the heroic last stand?" And Smokey snorts. "Mate, you'd trip over your own heroism." Rude, but fair. You're handed a new clip for your rifle, miraculously unjammed, and told to cover the rear. You're like, "Right, my butt?" "No, dummy, it means shoot at anything that moves behind you." You fire wildly, probably hitting nothing but your self-esteem. The forest is chaos. Smoke, screams, and the occasional "oh crap" explosion. You're thinking, if I survive, I'm never complaining about slow Wi-Fi again. Spoiler, you're gonna complain anyway. Mustache Man signals to hunker down behind some logs, and you're praying this is the part where the cavalry shows up. Nope, just more mud and misery. You're starting to get why war movies skip the part about trench foot and existential dread. Your stomach's rumbling again, and you're one bad cramp away from a war crime. Smokey tosses you a cigarette, but you're too winded even to pretend to smoke it. The enemy's still out there. And you're realizing retreat just means somewhere else. Stay tuned for part 6, where you learn bunker isn't just a cool gaming term, and your survival odds crash harder than a drunk uncle at a wedding. You're still not a corpse, which is honestly baffling, like finding a clean porta potty at a music festival. You're crouched behind a log in this godforsaken forest, your bare feet screaming, YOLO, tank top, now a WH white tank top, and your stomach staging a full-on riot thanks to that demonic ration blob. Mustache Man's whispering about a bunkerhead, and you're like, "Sweet, is that like a chill spot with Wi-Fi?" Nope. It's a concrete shoebox where you'll probably die, but at least it's dry. The squad sprinting through the trees, dodging bullets like it's a CrossFit class from hell. You're lagging behind, wheezing, because your cardio's more couch than marathon. Smoky Mateen's covering your sorry ass, firing at shadows while muttering. You're slower than a drunk on a bar stool. You're too busy tripping over roots to clap back. A bullet pings off a tree and you scream, "I'm not built for this. I'm built for brunch." The squad reaches the bunker, a grim, mossy slab that looks like it's allergic to fun. You dive inside expecting like a cozy hideout, but it's damp, smells like moldy gym socks, and has all the charm of a DMV waiting room. Mustache Man's barking orders, and you're just trying not to slip on the slimy floor. They hand you a bandage. Yep, you're bleeding from a random scrape, because war's like, "Here's a freebie." You're like,
Wow.
"Bruh, I need Wemdy." Not a Band-Aid. But you slap it on anyway. The bunker's crowded, with soldiers checking ammo and swapping curses like trading cards. You try to blend in by muttering. This is giving dystopian TikTok vibes, but Smokey just hands you a canteen and tells you to shut up. The water tastes like rust and regret, but you chug it, because dehydration's not your brand. Suddenly, there's a thud outside. Enemies close, and they're not here for a tea party. Mustache Man's like, "Hold the door," and you're thinking, "Door? This ain't Game of Thrones." But you lean against it anyway, because you're not about to argue with a guy who looks like he benches tanks. The door rattles, and you're praying it's just a raccoon, but nope. It's the enemy trying to RSVP to your funeral. You're uselessly clutching your rifle, still half jammed, while Smokey's firing through a slit like he's in a zombie flick. You try to help by yelling, "Let's vibe check these dudes," but nobody's laughing, especially not you when a bullet grazes the wall. The bunker's shaking from artillery and you're realizing safe is just a suggestion here. Your stomach's back at it, gurgling like a possessed washing machine. And you're one clench away from a war crime. Mustache Man tosses you a clip, growling, "Load it right this time, you muppet." You fumble, drop it, and everyone groans like you just spoiled endgame. You're thinking, if I die, I'm haunting this bunker as a TikTok ghost. The enemy's pounding the door, and you're low-key hoping for a time vortex to yeet you back to 2025. Spoiler, it's not coming. The Z Squad's prepping for a last stand, and you're just prepping to not crap your pants. Hang in for part 7, where you learned Russian roulette is worse than Russian roulette, and your survival odds sink faster than a lead balloon at a birthday party. You're still clinging to life, which is honestly more surprising than a plot twist in a Shyamalan flick. The bunker's a claustrophobic hellhole, smelling like sweat, gunpowder, and your shattered dreams. The enemy's hammering the door like they're Black Friday shoppers, and you're leaning against it, praying whoa. Tank top doesn't become your tombstone. Mustache Man's shouting about holding the fort, while Smokey Mateen's firing through a slit, looking like he was born to eat bullets. You're just trying not to faint, because your stomach's turning that ration blob into a chemical weapon. Speaking of rations, some genius decides it's time to eat again. They pass around more of those cursed tins, and you're like, bruh, I'd rather eat my flip-flops. But hunger's a harsh critic, so you crack open the can. It's a new flavor of despair. Think expired tuna mixed with regret. You gag, muttering, "This is giving food poisoning TikTok vibes." But Smokey just laughs, saying, "Mate, you'll shite worse than that soon." Charming. You choke it down. Each bite a hate crime against your taste buds. The door's still rattling, and you're wondering if you can negotiate with the enemy using your vape pen. Spoiler. They're not into mango mist. Mustache Man's rationing ammo now, which is bad news since you've already wasted half a clip shooting at, like a squirrel. You're handed a bayonet, yep, a frickin' knife on a stick, and told to get ready. You're like, I'm ready for a Netflix marathon. Not stabby time, but the door's creaking, and you're one bad push from a face to face with a very angry German. You grip the bayonet, hands shaking like you're trying to open a pickle jar, and whisper, "I'm too pretty to die." Smokey snorts. "Pretty? You look like a drowned rat's arse." Rude. But you're too busy panicking to argue. The door buckles and everyone's yelling, but you're frozen, wondering if you can TikTok your way out of this. Pro tip, you can't. A soldier next to you gets grazed by a stray bullet. You're like, is there a medic? Turns out, the medic's just a guy with a bottle of whiskey and a prayer. Which is not the vibe you were hoping for. Your stomach's gurgling louder than the gunfire, and you're clenching so hard you could crack a walnut. Mustache Man screaming. Push back, so you shove the door with all 12 pounds of your influencer muscle. Miraculously, it holds for now. You're thinking, maybe I'm not totally useless, but then you trip over a crate, because gravity's your real enemy. The squad's holding the line, but ammo's low. And your bayonet's looking less heroic and more, "Please don't make me use this." The enemy's shouting something in German. Probably surrender or die, but you're too busy praying for a time machine. Your bare feet are numb, your tank top's a biohazard, and you're realizing WW is just a series of bad life choices. Smokey tosses you a cigarette, but you're too frazzled to catch it. The door's about to give, and you're one deep breath away from a panic attack. Stick around for part 8, where you learn close quarters isn't just a Zoom call gone wrong, and your survival odds drop faster than your phone battery during a Twitter feud. You're still not fertilizer, which is honestly a miracle, reveling free Wi-Fi in 1944. The bunker's a sweaty sardine can, With the enemy pounding the door like it's a pit ada and you're the candy. Yorolo. Tank top is a soggy rag, your bare feet are basically prunes, and that ration blob staging a hostile takeover of your intestines. Mustachey man's yelling about close quarters. And you kulak, like a sleepover. No, it's stab or be stab time, and you're clutching your bayonet like it's a fidget spinner. Smoky Mateen's reloading, muttering, "Don't cock this up." "Yeah, daft git," which you're pretty sure means don't die. The door finally splinters, because of course it does, and a very pissed off German soldier charges in. You scream, "I'm just here for the aesthetic," but he's not vibing with your influencer energy. You swing your bayonet, miss spectacularly, and stab a crate instead. Nailed it. Smokey tackles the guy, saving your sorry butt, while you're just flailing like a drunk octopus. More enemies pour in, and it's Chiels, like a Black Friday sale. But with bullets and worse hygiene, you're dodging fists and bayonets, yelling, "Can we talk about this on X?" Spoiler, they don't have X, and they don't care. Mustache man's grappling with a dude twice his size, and you're like, "Respect, but I'm not built for this." You trip over a canteen, because gravity's still your nemesis, and land in a pile of empty ration tins. Classy. You grab one and chuck it at an enemy's head. Direct hit. You're low-key proud until he turns, looking like he's about to yeet you into next week. You scramble behind a crate, whispering, "I'm too young for a war crime." The squad's fighting like it's a bar brawl, but you're just trying not to get shanked. Your stomach's gurgling so loud it's practically a battle cry, and you're one bad cramp away from a biohazard. Smokey tosses you a pistol. Yep, a real one. Not your Nerf blaster. And yells, "Shoot, you muppet." You fumble, drop it, and it goes off, grazing your own foot. Congrats, you're officially a danger to yourself. You're like, "Bruh, I need a tutorial," but there's no YouTube in 1944. You pick it up, fire wildly, and somehow don't hit anyone. Which is both a relief and an embarrassment. The enemy's thinning out, thanks to Mustache Man's sheer, "I eat pain for breakfast" energy, but you're still useless. Cowering behind your crate like it's a force field. Your tank top's ripped, exposing your sad attempt at a gym bod. And you're pretty sure you're allergic to heroism. The last enemy goes down and the bunker's quiet, except for your stomach, which sounds like a dying whale. Mustache Man glares at you. You're a bloody liability, he growls, but you're too busy checking your pulse to care. Smokey's lighting a cigarette, looking at you like you're a walking meme. You're thinking, if I survive, I'm never complaining about 5G again. The squad's patching wounds with whiskey and curses, and you're just praying for a nap. But war doesn't do naps, and you're about to learn the hard way. Hang tight for part 9, where field medic becomes your worst nightmare. And your survival odds plummet faster than a bad Yelp review. You're still breathing, which is frankly a glitch in the matrix. The bunker's a mess. Blood, bullet casings, and your dignity scattered like confetti. Wow, tank top at top NDHL crop top, your foot's throbbing from your own dumbassery with that pistol, and your stomach's composing a symphony of regret. Mustache Man's patching up the squad with a bottle of whiskey and a scowl, while Smokey Mateen's smoking like he's auditioning for a noir film. Then, because this day's a sadist, Mustache Man points at you. You're helping the medic. You're like, "Medic, bro, I failed bio in high school." But the medic is just a dude named Doc who smells like booze and bad decisions, and he's handing you a rag and a needle. You're staring at a soldier with a gash on his arm, and Doc's like, "Stitch it up, kid." You're like, "Stitch? I can't even sew a button." But there's no tutorial for this. Just a guy bleeding and glaring at you like you're the reason he's hurt. You grab the needle, hands shaking like you're defusing a bomb, and mutter, "This is giving Grey's Anatomy vibe, but worse." You poke the guy's arm, and he screams like you stabbed his soul. "Sorry, my bad," you yelp, but Doc's just laughing, probably because he's half drunk. You try again, stitching like you're threading a needle in a hurricane. And it's less surgery, and more abstract art. The guy's cursing you out, but you're too busy praying you don't give him gangrene. Your stomach's gurgling louder than his complaints, and you're one clench away from a war crime. Doc hands you the whiskey bottle. Disinfectant, he says, but you're tempted to chug it for courage. You pour it on the wound, and the guy hollers like you set him on fire. My bad again. You squeak, but nobody's impressed. You finish the stitches, think Frankenstein's monster, but sloppier, and Doc slaps you on the back, nearly knocking you over. Not bad for a numpty, he says, which you're pretty sure isn't a compliment. You're about to collapse when Mustache Man barks. Check the others. There's a dude with a bullet in his leg, and you're like, bruh, I'm not qualified for this. Doc hands you tweezers and a smirk, and you're digging in like it's a claw machine, except the prize is trauma. You pull out the bullet, and the guy passes out, probably from your vibes. You're thinking, if I survive, I'm never watching medical TikToks again. Your foot's still bleeding, but nobody cares because you're the worst medic since Dr. Pepper. Smokey's watching, flicking ash and laughing like you're a live comedy show. The bunker's quiet now, but you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. Probably on your head. Your tank top's a biohazard, your hands are sticky with blood, and you're realizing war's just a buffet of pain and bad smells. Mustache Man's planning the next move. And you're praying it doesn't involve you touching more body parts. Your stomach's ready to yeet that ration blob, and you're one bad stitch away from a breakdown. Stick around for part 10, where scouting gets you in deeper crap and your survival odds crash harder than a wedding DJ playing Nickelback. You're still not pushing daisies, which is honestly more shocking than finding out your ex wasn't just busy. The bunker's a grim sauna, reeking of whiskey blood, and your existential crisis, your wall tank top is a tattered war crime. Your foot's pulsing like it's got its own EDM track, and your stomach's ration blob is plotting a jailbreak. You're covered in someone else's blood from your stint as the world's worst medic. And Mustache Man's already got a new terrible idea. Scout the perimeter. He barks, pointing at you like you're the designated idiot. You're like, perimeter. Bruh. I can't even find my keys. But Smokey Mateen snickering, handing you a rusty binoculars set and a map you're 90% sure is just a napkin doodle. You limp out of the bunker, muttering, this is giving Bear Grylls vibes, but I'm more Bear Snacks. The forest is dark, foggy, and smells like wet dog and regret. Every rustle makes you jump, because you're expecting Nyxes or worse, squirrels. You're barefoot because your flip-flops are probably in Narnia, and every step's a new kind of pain. You peer through the binoculars, upside down naturally, and see nothing but your own incompetence. You're whispering, just vibe. Just vibe. But the only vibe is imminent death. You trip over a root because gravity's your personal troll and drop the binoculars in a puddle. Great job, champ. You hear footsteps and freeze, praying it's just Smokey pranking you. Nope, it's an enemy patrol, chatting in German about like sauerkraut or world domination. You're one loud burp away from being a PO, so you dive behind a bush which, plot twist, is full of thorns. You bite your lip to not scream, but your stomach's like, let's rumble. The gurgling so loud it's practically a faux-born. The patrol pauses, and you're clenching everything. Cheeks, fists, hopes. Praying they don't find you. Miraculously, they move on, probably because even Nazis don't want to deal with your vibes. You crawl back toward the bunker, thorns stuck in places you didn't know you had, and realize you forgot the map. Classic. You stumble into the bunker, looking like a hedgehog's bad day. And Mustache Man's like, report. You're like, saw some dudes, maybe tanks, definitely bushes. He face palms so hard he probably sees stars. Smokey's laughing, flicking ash like he's in a Scorsese flick. You're a walking cock up. Mustache Man growls, but there's no time to roast you because, surprise, artillery starts pounding again. You dive for cover, landing on your bad foot, and scream like you're auditioning for a slasher flick. The bunker shakes and you're thinking, if I die, I'm haunting this forest as a TikTok cryptid. You're scouting until is useless, and the squad's prepping for another fight. You're handed a rifles, still half jammed, and told to man up. You're like, man up? I'm barely manning my bowels. Your tank top's basically string now, and you're one thorn away from a breakdown. The enemy's closing in, and you're realizing scouting was just code for go be a pincushion. Hang in for part 11, where Cradio duty proves you're a tech disaster and your survival odds tank faster than a reality show marriage. You're still not a war statistic, which is wilder than your uncle's conspiracy posts on X. The bunker's a sweaty dumpster fire, smelling like gunpowder mold. And you're fading will to live. Hello. Tank top is a shredded cry for help. Your foot's throbbing like it's got beef with you. And that ration blob's staging a coup in your guts. Mustache Man's glaring like you personally lost the war. And Smoky Mateen's flicking ash. Probably betting on when you'll croak. Then because the universe loves a sick joke. Mustache Man points at you. He barks. You're like, radio, bro. I can't even pair my AirPods. But they shove you toward a clunky box that looks like invented by angry cavemen. It's got dials, wires, and a vibe that screams touch me and die. They need you to call for backup because your scouting was about as useful as a screen door on a submarine. You're handed a headset that smells like someone's gym bag and a codebook written in like ancient runes. Contact HQ. Mustache Man says, don't balls it up. You're muttering, this is giving tech support vibes, but I'm the one who needs help. You twiddle the dials, hoping for a miracle. But all you get is static and a faint German polka band. Great, you try the codebook, but it's like deciphering your ex's passive-aggressive texts. You whisper into the mic, yo HQ there, it's a yellow guy, and Smoky face palms so hard he nearly knocks himself out. The static crackles, and you're pretty sure you just broadcasted your panic to the enemy. Your stomach's gurgling like a possessed espresso machine, and you're one bad knob twist away from a war crime. You finally hear a voice. HQ maybe, but it's garbled, like they're underwater or just done with your nonsense. You're like, we need backup ASAP, we're getting yeeted out here. But you forgot the codes, so it's just you freestyling. EQ's probably like, let this TikToker on the line. You try again, but the radio sparks, because of course it does, and you yelp, dropping the headset like it's cursed. Mustache Man screaming, fix it, you twit, while you're poking wires like it's a science fair project gone wrong. Smokey's laughing, saying, mate, you're worse than a one-legged bloke in arse kicking contest. Rude, but accurate. The artillery's still pounding, and you're thinking, if I die, I'm never touching tech again. You somehow get the radio working, but now you're picking up what sounds like a French bakery ad. You're like, croissants won't save us. Your foot's bleeding through the bandage, your tank top's a threadbare disaster, and you're realizing war's just a tech nightmare with extra explosions. Mustache Man yanks the headset, barking actual codes, and you're demoted to hold the flashlight duty, which you still screw up by dropping it. The squad's prepping for another fight, and you're praying for a time vortex to yeet you back to 2025. Your stomach's ready to launch that ration blob, and you're one static shock away from a meltdown. Stick around for part 12, where Ammo Run proves you're a logistical disaster, and your survival odds crash harder than a budget airline's customer service. You're still not a casualty, which is more surprising than a plot twist in a soap opera. The bunker's a claustrophobic sweat lodge, reeking of smoke, despair. And your UOO tank top now a tattered war crime. Your foot's throbbing like it's auditioning for a horror flick. And that ration blob's turning your stomach into a chemical weapons lab. Mustache Man's cursing your radio fiasco. Smoky Mateen's chain, smoking like he's got stock in tobacco, and you're just praying for a nap or a Netflix queue. But war's not about self-care. And Mustache Man's got a new dumb job for you. Ammo Run, he barks, pointing to a crate of bullets across the battlefield. You're like, run, bro. I get winded opening Uber Eats. but they're low on ammo, thanks to your earlier shoot at nothing strategy, so you're voluntold to fetch it. Smokey hands you a burlap sack saying, "Don't cock it up, ya numpty." You're muttering, "This is giving DoorDash vibes, but with death." You limp out of the bunker, barefoot and bleeding, into a fog so thick it's basically soup. Bullets are zipping, shells are booming, and you're dodging like it's a dodgeball game from hell. Your tank top's flapping like a sad fly and you're whispering, just vibe, just vibe." But the vibe is game over. You trip over a rock, because gravity's your ex's pettier cousin, and eat mud for the 47th time. The crate's up ahead, glinting like it's mocking you. You crawl, because running's not your brand, and every rustle makes you jump like you're in a slasher flick. You reach the crate, but it's heavier than your student loan debt. You're like, who designed this? Satan, you drag it grunting while your stomach gurgles like a volcano ready to blow. Halfway back, you hear German voices. Yep. Another patrol, because your luck's worse than a cursed MFT. You dive behind a stump, sack and all, praying your low battery aura keeps you hidden. The gurgling's so loud it's practically a beacon, and you're clenching harder than a Black Friday shopper. Miraculously, they pass, and you're hauling the crate again. Feeling like a discount Hercules, you stumble into the bunker, panting, only to realize you grabbed the wrong crate. It's full of, spare boots. Mustache Man's face is redder than a bad Tinder date, and Smokey's laughing so hard he's choking on ash. "You absolute blend?" Mustache Man roars. But there's no time to yeet you into oblivion because the enemy's attacking again. You're handed a rifle, still half jammed, and told to make it count. You're like, "Count? I can't even count my followers." Your foot's a bloody mess, your tank top's a thread, and you're one bad drag away from a breakdown. The squad's firing, and you're just trying not to shoot your own toe again. The crate fiasco's got everyone pissed, and you're realizing Como Run was just code for go be a moving target. Your stomach's ready to launch that ration blob, and you're one bullet away from a panic attack. Stick around for part 13, where Night Watch proves you're a nocturnal disaster, and your survival odds tank faster than a knockoff smartwatch. You're still not a war trophy, which is wilder than your mom's group chat blowing up over a casserole recipe. The bunker's a dank pit of misery, smelling like gunpowder, boo. And your Wolo tank top, now a shredded war crime. Your foot's throbbing like it's got its own grudge, and that ration blob's turning your guts into a TikTok sound effect. Mustache Man's still fuming over your ammo. Run flop. Turns out, boots don't shoot bullets, and Smokey Mateen's smoking like he's trying to set a personal record. The enemy's backed off for now, but it's night, and Mustache Man's got a fresh torture for you, Night Watch.
Boss, you're like, watch, brah.
I can't even stay awake through a Zoom meeting. But they shove you toward the bunker's slit, hand you a rifle, and tell you to stay sharp. You're muttering, "Sharp. I'm barely dull." It's pitch black outside, colder than your ex's heart, and you're barefoot, bleeding, and wrapped in what's left of your tank top. Basically a napkin now. The forest is creepy, with owls hooting like they're roasting your life choices. Every twig snap makes you jump, because you're expecting Nazis, beers, or worse, your high school bully. You're whispering, "Just vibe." Just vibe. But the vibe is horror movie victim. Your rifle's still half jammed, and you're pretty sure you'd shoot your own foot before an enemy. Your stomach's gurgling louder than the owls, and you're clenching so hard you could crack a coconut. You try to focus, but your eyes are drooping, because your sleep schedule's more binge Netflix than survive You Dare You. You nod off, because of course you do, and wake up to Smokey smacking your head, hissing, "You asleep, you daft git." You're like, just vibing with my eyelids. He's not amused, and now you're on double watch, which is just cruel. You stare into the dark, seeing shapes that might be tanks, trees, or your impending doom. Your foot's numb, your tank top's a threadbare joke, and you're one old hoot away from a breakdown. Then you hear it. Actual footsteps, not your imagination. You freeze, praying it's just Smokey pranking you. But nope, it's an enemy scout sneaking like he's got a PhD in stealth. You're supposed to shoot, but your rifle's a diva, and you're shaking like a bad TikTok dance. You whisper, "Yo, universe, can we skip this part? No dice, you aim fire." And miracle, hit a tree, scaring the scout off. You're low-key proud until Mustache Man storms over. Yelling, you woke the whole bloody forest. Apparently, your shot was louder than your stomach. Now the enemy's alert, and the squad's glaring like you just leaked their group chat. Smokey's laughing, flicking ash, saying, "Man, you're a one-man cock. Up. Your night watch is a bust, and you're demoted to stay out of the way. Duty, which you're still bad at. The cold's biting, your guts are rioting, and you're realizing war's just a sleep, deprived fever dream. You're thinking, if I survive, I'm never pulling an all-nighter again. Spoiler, you will. Hang in for part 14, where morning rations prove you're a culinary disaster and your survival odds crash harder than an influencer's crypto scam. You're still not a war memorial, which is honestly more shocking than a plot twist in a reality TV finale. The bunker's a moldy sweatbox reeking of damp concrete, cigarette ash, and your UL tank top, now a tattered war crime. Your foot's throbbing like it's got its own vendetta, and that ration blob's turning your stomach into a biohazard zone. Dawn's breaking, and your night watch disaster, where you basically screamed, "Here we are," to the enemy, has Mustache Man ready to yeet you into the next war. Smokey McTeen's chain smoking, smirking like you're his personal sitcom. Then, because this day's a relentless troll, it's time for morning rations. You're like, sweet. Breakfast burrito. Nope, it's another tin of mystery sludge, and guess who's on prep duty? You. Mustache Man shoves a can opener at you, growling. Don't cock it up. You're muttering, "This is giving Gordon Ramsay vibes, but I'm the one getting yelled at." The tins are rusty, the labels are in hieroglyphics, and you're pretty sure one's just sadness in solid form. You crack one open, and it smells like a gym locker and regret had a baby. You're like, "You're my dog eats better than this." But the squad's starving, so you're doling out globs of gray goo like a dystopian lunch lady. Your stomach's gurgling so loud, it's practically harmonizing with the artillery in the distance, and you're one bad whiff away from a war crime. You try to season the rations with some dirt, because aesthetics, right? And Smokey laughs, saying, "Met, you're cooking like a blind drunk." Rude but fair. You hand out the tins, but you drop one, because gravity's your nemesis, and it splatters on Mustache Man's boots. He's glaring like you just insulted his mustache, which, to be fair, is his personality. "You're a bloody calamity," he roars, and you're like, "A big mood, but I'm trying." The squad's choking down the sludge, gagging like it's a TikTok challenge gone wrong, and you're low-key proud until you realize you gave someone the wrong tin. Apparently, that one was dessert, a cost slightly less gross goo. Your culinary career's over before it started. Your foot's bleeding through the bandage. Your tank top's basically dental floss, and you're realizing war's just a buffet of bad smells and worse decisions. The enemy's quiet for now, but Mustache Man's planning a counterattack, and you're praying it doesn't involve you touching food again. You try to eat your own ration, but it's like chewing despair. And your stomach's like, "Now we're done." You're clenching harder than a bad Tinder date, and Smokey's tossing you a cigarette, probably to distract you from your own incompetence. You fumble it, because hands aren't your thing, and he's laughing like you're a live blooper reel. The squad's gearing up, and you're handed a rifle, still half jammed, and told to stay alert. You're alert. I'm barely awake. Your bare feet are numb. Your guts are rioting, and you're one bad bite away from a breakdown. The day's just starting, and you're already over it. Stick around for part 15, where counterattack proves you're a tactical disaster and your survival odds tank faster than a reboot nobody asked for. You're still not a war casualty, which is wilder than your cousin's crypto portfolio before the crash. The bunker's a steamy pit of despair, smelling like rancid rations. smoke, and your oil, tank top, now a shredded war crime. Your foot's throbbing like it's got its own Spotify playlist, and that ration blob's turning your stomach into a chemical weapons factory. Your breakfast prep disaster, where you basically serve sadness with a side of dirt, has Mustache Man ready to court-martial you. And Smoky Mateen's smoking like he's got a lifetime supply. The sun's up, and Mustache Man's barking about a counterattack. You're like, counterattack? Bruh. I can't even counter a Karen at Starbucks. But they're dragging you out of the bunker, handing you your half-jammed rifle, and telling you to fall in. You're muttering, "This is giving Hunger Games vibes, but I'm the first to go." The squad's creeping through the forest, and you're barefoot bleeding and tripping over every root because gravity's your personal hater. The plan's to flank the enemy, but you're like, the flank. Is that, like, a TikTok dance? Smoky hisses, "Shut it, you muppet," and you're trying to be stealthy, but your stomach's gurgling louder than a broken muffler. You're clenching so hard you could juice a lemon, and every twig snap makes you jump like you're in a jump scare mundage. The squad's moving like ninjas, while you're stumbling like a drunk toddler. Mustache Man signals to spread out, and you're assigned to cover the left. You're like, left. I barely know my rye. You crouch behind a tree, rifle shaking, and peer into the fog. You see shapes, enemy soldiers maybe, and panic fire, hitting nothing but your own ego. The noise blows the squad's cover, and Mustache Man's glare could melt steel. "You bloody pillock," he whispers. But there's no time to roast you because the enemy's shooting back. Bullets are zipping, and you're diving for cover, landing in a thorn bush because of course you are. You're like, "Yo, universe, can we pause this DLC?" Your tank top's caught, ripping even more, and you're basically shirtless now, rocking a vibe that's half Tarzan, half train wreck. Smokey's firing like he's in a Michael Bay flick, while you're just trying not to shoot your own foot again. Your stomach's ready to yeet that ration blob, and you're one bad dodge away from a war crime. The squad's pushing forward, but you're stuck in the bush, flailing like a cat in a bathtub. You finally free yourself, only to trip and face plant in mud because gravity's got a vendetta. Mustache Man yanks you up, growling, "Move, you useless git." You're running, wheezing, and realizing war's just CrossFit with higher stakes. The enemy's retreating thanks to the squad, not you. And you're low, key relieved, and you realize you lost your rifle in the bush. Smokey's laughing, flicking ash, saying, "Mate, you're a walking bin fire." Your foot's a bloody mess, your tank top's a memory, and you're one thorn away from a breakdown. The counterattack's a win, but you're the squad's MVP of screwing up. Stick around for part 16, where Kresupply proves you're a logistical nightmare, and your survival odds crash harder than a Nokia phone. You're still not a war stat, which is crazier than your aunt's MLM pitch at Thanksgiving. The forest, a muddy hellscape, smelling of gunpowder pine, and your NWO tank top, now a few sad threads clinging to your dignity. Your foot's throbbing like it's got its own grudge match, and that ration blob's turning your guts into a chemical spill. Your counterattack flop, where you lost your rifle and got intimate with a thorn bush, has Mustache Man ready to yeet you into a history book as worst soldier ever. Smoky Mateen's chain smoking, grinning like you're his personal blooper reel. The squad's licking their wounds, but Mustache Man's already got a new torture. Resupply. You're like, resupply. A brew? I can't even rest on my fridge. They need ammo and food from a supply drop a mile away, and guess who's the errand boy? You. Smokey tosses you a sack, saying, "Don't balls it up, ya twit." You're muttering, "This is giving Amazon Prime vibes," but with zero free shipping, you limp off, barefoot and bleeding, into a fog so thick it's basically a wet blanket. The ground's a minefield of rocks and roots, and you're tripping like it's your full-time job. Your stomach's gurgling louder than the distant artillery, and you're clenching so hard you could crack a walnut. You're whispering, "Just vibe. Just vibe," but the vibe is cannon fodder. You find the supply drop, crates scattered like a bad yard sale, but it's guarded by a stray dog that looks like it flunked out of Cerberus school. You're like, nice doggy, want a TikTok collab? It growls and you yeet a stick, hoping it's into fetch. Spoiler, it's not. You grab a crate, but it's heavy, like your student loan debt, and you're dragging it while dodging the dog's teeth. Your tank top's gone full Tarzan, and you're one bad step away from a war crime. You hear voices, enemy patrol, because your luck's worse than a cursed fidget spinner. You dive behind a crate, praying your stomach doesn't rat you out. The gurgling's so loud it's practically a sonar ping, but the patrol passes, probably because even Nazis don't want your vibes. You haul the crate back, wheezing like you ran a marathon, only to realize you grabbed medical supplies instead of ammo. Mustache Man's face is redder than a bad sunburn, and Smokey's laughing so hard he's coughing ash. You absolute plonker. Mustache Man roars, but the squad's too desperate to ditch you. They patch up with your bandages, and you're demoted to carry the water duty, which you still screw up by spilling half of it. Your foot's a bloody disaster, your tank top's a memory, and you're realizing war's just a logistics nightmare with extra mud. The squad's prepping for another push, and you're praying for a time vortex to yeet you back to 2025. Your stomach's ready to launch that ration blob, and you're one bad lift away from a breakdown. Smokey tosses you a cigarette, but you drop it. Because coordination's not your brand. The day's dragging and you're over it. Stick around for part 17 where trench duty proves you're a digging disaster, and your survival odds tank faster than a bad reboot sequel. You're still not a war footnote, which is wilder than your grandma's bingo night drama. The forest's a soggy death trap reeking of mud, blood, and your, well, tank top. Now a few sad strings playing Survivor. Your foot's throbbing like it's got its own beef, and that ration blob's turning your guts into a toxic waste dump. Your resupply screw up, grabbing bandages instead of bullets. Has Mustache Man ready to yeet you into a war crimes tribunal. Smokey Mateen's chain smoking, chuckling like you're a live fail compilation. The squad's back in the trenches, and Mustache Man's got a new punishment, trench duty. You're like, trench. Bruh. I thought that was just a vibe. Nope, it's digging a new trench, and they shove a rusty shovel in your hands. You're muttering, this is giving Minecraft vibes, but with 0 diamonds. The ground's harder than your last breakup, and you're barefoot bleeding, and whining about needing a Red Bull. Smokey's like, mate, you're softer than a Toff's Knickers, and you're too tired to Google what that means. You start digging, but it's less war hero and more toddler with a spoon. Mud's flying, mostly in your face, and your stomach's gurgling louder than the shovel's scrape. You're clenching so hard you could crush coal, and every swing's a new kind of pain. You hit a rock, because of course you do, and the shovel snaps like your last shred of hope. Mustache Man's screaming, you bloody clot. While you are bad, can we Amazon a new one? Spoiler, Amazon's not a thing yet. You grab another shovel. But now you're digging in the wrong spot, because directions aren't your brand. The squad's dodging artillery, and you're just dodging responsibility. Your tank top's gone full castaway, and you're one bad scoop away from a war crime. You finally carve out a sad ditch, more puddle than trench, and Mustache Man's like, that's it, a rat wouldn't hide in that. Smokey's laughing, flicking ash, saying, meat. You're a one-man muck-up. You're low-key proud until you realize your trench is flooding because you dug in a swamp. Classic. The enemy's shelling again, and you dive into your useless ditch, landing in water that smells like regret and gym socks. Your foot's a bloody mess, your tank top's a myth, and you're realizing war's just manual labor with extra explosions. Mustache Man's barking orders, and you're praying for a nap or a time machine. Your stomach's ready to yeet that ration blob, and you're one bad swing away from a breakdown. The squad's holding the line, but you're holding nothing but a grudge against dirt. Smokey tosses you a cigarette, but you fumble it into the mud, because hands aren't your thing. You're thinking, If I survive, I'm never touching a shovel again. Spoiler, you'll touch worse. The trench is a bust, and you're demoted to stay out of the way. Duty, which you're still flunking. The enemy's gearing up, and you're over this whole war aesthetic. Stick around for part 18. Where's sentry duty? Proves you're a vigilance disaster, and your survival odds crash harder than an influencer's canceled merch drop. You're still not a war relic, which is crazier than your cousin's flat earth rants on X. The trench is a muddy nightmare, smelling of despair, gunpowder. And your UAO tank top, now a few pathetic threads begging for mercy. Your foot's throbbing like it's got its own vendetta. And that ration blob's turning your guts into a chemical war zone. Your trench digging disaster, where you basically built a kiddie pool, has Mustache Man ready to eat you into a history book as the human fiasco. Smoky Mateen's chains smoking, grinning like you're his personal fail montage. The squad's holding the line and Mustache Man's got a new torture. Sentry duty? You're like, sentry. Bruh. I can't even guard my fridge from midnight snacks. But they shove you to the trench's edge, hand you a half-jammed rifle, and tell you to watch for movement. You're muttering. This is giving Night at the Museum vibes, but with zero Ben Stiller. It's dusk. Colder than a Tinder date gone wrong, and you're barefoot, bleeding, and wrapped in what's left of your tank top. Basically a sad band-aid now. The forest is eerie, with shadows dancing like they're mocking your life choices. Every rustle makes you jump because you're expecting Nasas, wolves, or worse, your old gym teacher. You're whispering, just vibe, but the vibe is final girl in a slasher flick. Your stomach's gurgling louder than the wind. And you're clenching so hard you could snap a twig. You try to focus, but your eyes are drooping because your sleep schedule's more TikTok scroll than survive UW dudes. You nod off, because of course you do, and wait to Smokey smacking your head, hissing. You dozing, you daft pillock. You're like, not just vibing with my eyes closed. He's not buying it, and now you're on triple sentry, which is just sadistic. You stare into the dark, seeing shapes that might be tanks, trees, or your impending doom. Your foot's numb, your tank top's a myth, and you're one shadow away from a breakdown. Then you hear it, actual movement, not your paranoia. You freeze, praying it's just a deer, but nope. It's an enemy scout, creeping like he's got a black belt and sneaking. You're supposed to shoot, but your rifle's a diva, and you're shaking like a bad TikTok lip sync.
You whisper, oh.
Universe, can we fast forward? No luck. You aim fire and Marrow graze a bush, scaring the scout off. You're low-key proud until Mustache Man storms over, yelling, "You woke the bloody camp." Your shot was louder than your stomach, and now the enemy's stirring. Smokey's laughing, flicking ash, saying, "Mate, you're a one-man cock-up factory." The squad's glaring like you just spoiled D-Day, and you're demoted to don't touch anything. Duty, which you're still botching. Your foot's a bloody disaster, your tank top's gone, and you're realizing war's just a vigilance test you're flunking. You're thinking, if I survive, I'm never staying up late again. Spoiler, you will. The enemy's planning something, and you're over this whole sentry aesthetic. Stick around for part 19, where Messenger Run proves you're a delivery disaster, and your survival odds tank faster than a bad reboot's box office. You're still not a war ghost, which is wilder than your uncle's Hollians built the pyramids theory. The trench is a soggy death pit, reeking of mud, smoke, and your Orel tank top, now a few sad fibers screaming for retirement. Your foot's throbbing like it's got its own beef, and that ration blob's turning your guts into a biohazard warning. Your sentry duty flop, where you basically sent an RSVP to the enemy, has Mustache Man ready to yeet you into a war documentary as the guy who ruined everything. Smoky Mateen's chain smoking, smirking like you're a live Reddit fail thread. The squad's on edge, and Mustache Man's got a new punishment. Messenger Run? You're like, Messenger, bruh. I ghosted my group chat last week, but they need you to deliver a note to another Yuta a mile away, because your last stunt woke the enemy. They shove a crumpled paper in your hand and tell you to haul arse. You're muttering, this is giving Postmates vibes, but with bullets. You limp out, barefoot and bleeding, into a foxhook thickets like wading through chowder. The forest's a minefield of roots and rocks, and you're tripping like it's your signature move. Your stomach's gurgling louder than the distant gunfire, and you're clenching so hard you could crush a grapefruit. You're whispering, just vibe. Just vibe, but the vibe is courier of doom. You clutch the note, which is probably just Mustache Man's grocery list, and dodge shadows like you're in a bad spy flick. You hear German voices. Yep, another patrol, because your luck's worse than a cursed meme coin. You dive behind a log, praying your stomach doesn't blow your cover. The burgling's so loud it's basically a siren, but the patrol passes, probably because they don't want your bad juju. You keep moving, but you trip, because gravity's your ex's pettier sibling, and drop the note in a puddle. You fish it out, but it's smudged, like your last attempt at adulting. You're like, bruh, is this even legible? No time to check, so you keep limping, your tank top now a sad ribbon. You find the other unit, but they're not thrilled to see you, especially when you hand over a soggy, unreadable note. Their leader, a guy with a scar like he fought a bear, glares and says, "What's this, you plonker?" You're like, "Vibes, he's not amusing and you're demoted to go away duty." You limp back, dodging bullets in your own incompetence, only to find Mustache Man fuming because the note was like, critical. Smokey's laughing, flicking ash, saying, "Mate, you're a walking bin fire. Your foot's a bloody mess, your tank top's a memory, and you're one bad delivery away from a breakdown. The squad's prepping for a fight, and you're praying for a time vortex to yeet you back to 2025. Your stomach's ready to launch that ration blob, and you're over this whole messenger aesthetic. You're thinking, if I survive, I'm never running errands again. Spoiler, you will. The enemy's closing in, and you're just trying not to trip again. Stick around for part 20, where first aid proves you're a medical disaster, and your survival odds tank faster than a flop influencer's follower count. You're still not a war footnote, which is crazier than your cousin's. Bigfoot is real. Rants on X, the trench is a muddy hellhole, reeking of gunpowder sweat. And your oh tank top now a few sad threads auditioning for a rag. Your foot's throbbing like it's got its own vendetta, and that ration blob's turning your guts into a chemical weapon. Your messenger run disaster, where you turned a critical note into soggy abstract art, has Mustache Man ready to yeet you into a war crimes montage. Smokey Mateen's chain smoking, grinning like you're a live TikTok fail. The squad's gearing up, but a guy's down, bleeding from a shrapnel wound, and Mustache Man points at you. First aid. You're like, first aid? Bro, I panic when I get a paper cut. But they shove you toward the guy, handing you a bandage and a bottle of whiskey. You're muttering, this is giving WebMD vibes, but I'm the virus. The wounded soldier's groaning, looking at you like you're his personal Grim Reaper. You pour whiskey on the wound, because that's disinfectant, right? And he screams like you set his soul on fire. My bad? You yelp, fumbling the bandage like it's a hot potato. Your stomach's gurgling louder than his curses, and you're clenching so hard you could crack a walnut. You try to wrap the bandage, but it's less medic and more mummy cosplay gone wrong. Smokey's laughing, flicking ash, saying, "Mate, you're worse than a drunk barber." You're like, "I'm trying, okay? I'm not Dr. Phil." The guy's still bleeding, and you're praying you don't give him trench foot or, like, trench arm. You slap on more bandages, using half the supply, and it looks like a toddler's art project. Mustache Man's yelling, "Move faster, you plonker," but you're too busy not fainting. You finally finish, and the guy's alive, barely, glaring like you're the reason for D-Day. Your foot's a bloody mess, your tank top's a myth, and you're one bad rap away from a breakdown. The squad's prepping for another push, and you're praying for a time vortex to yeet you back to 2025. Smokey tosses you a cigarette, but you drop it in the mud. because hands aren't your thing. Your stomach's ready to launch that ration blob, and you're realizing war's just a medical nightmare with extra mud. Mustache man's barking orders, and you're demoted to don't touch anyone duty, which you're still flunking. The enemy's closing in, and you're over this hole, first aidic, a thinking, if I survive, I'm never playing doctor again. Spoiler, you might? The trench is shaking from artillery, and you're just trying not to trip over your own bandages. The squad's low on everything, ammo, morale, and patience for your nonsense. Your bare feet are numb, your guts are rioting, and you're one scream away from a panic attack. The day's dragging, and you're wondering how it's still only, like noon. Stick around for part 21, where decoy duty proves you're a distraction disaster, and your survival odds tank faster than a bad influencer sponsorship deal. You're still not a war statistic, which is wilder than your aunt's. Essential oils cure everything, tea talk. The trench is a swampy dumpster fire, smelling of blood, smoke. And your Wilo tank top, now a sad wisp of fabric begging for mercy. Your foot's throbbing like it's got its own grudge. And that ration blob's turning your guts into a biohazard TikTok. Your first aid fiasco, where you turned a wounded guy into a bandage burrito, has Mustache Man ready to yeet you into a war crimes blooper reel. Smoky Mateen's chain smoking. Chuckling like you're a live meme. The enemy circling and Mustache Man's got a new genius plan, decoy duty. You're like, decoy. Bruh. I can't even fake a sick day. But they need to distract the enemy while the squad sneaks around. They shove a flare in your hand and tell you to make a scene. You're muttering, this is giving Coachella vibes but with death. You limp out, barefoot and bleeding, into a clearing where every shadow screams, sniper. You're supposed to wave the flare and yell, but your stomach's gurgling louder than a broken speaker. And you're clenching so hard you could crush a coconut. You light the flare, and it's brighter than your future, painting you as the world's easiest target. You're yelling, "You, over here, losers," like it's a roast battle, but the bullets start zipping, and you're diving for cover, landing in a ditch that smells like regret and wet dog. Your tank top's gone full castaway, and you're one bad away from a war crime. The enemy's taking the bait, which is great, except you're the bait. And you're not loving the vibe. You're crawling through mud, flare still sparking, muttering, "This is now the cloud I wanted." Smokey's somewhere laughing, probably betting on when you'll get yeeted. You hear German shouts, and you're praying your low battery aura makes you invisible. Spoiler, it doesn't. You yeet the flare into a bush, hoping it'll distract them, but it just starts a small fire because you're a chaos magnet. The squad's sneaking, and you're supposed to keep moving, but you trip over a root because gravity's your ex's meaner cousin. You're thinking, if I die, I'm haunting this ditch as a TikTok cryptid. Miraculously, the enemy's chasing your fire instead of you, and you crawl back to the trench, panting like you ran a 5K. Mustache Man's like, "Not bad, you pillock," which is the closest you'll get to a compliment. Smokey's flicking ash, saying, "Mate, you're a walking bin fire." But it worked. Your foot's a bloody disaster, your tank top's a memory, and you're realizing war's just a performance review you're bombing. The squad's in position, but you're demoted to stay down duty, which you still screw up by sneezing so loud, it's basically a sonar ping. Your stomach's ready to launch that ration blob, and you're one bad crawl away from a breakdown. The enemy's distracted, but you're over this hole. Decoy, aesthetic. You're thinking, if I survive, I'm never being extra again. Spoiler, you will. The day's not done, and you're just trying not to set yourself on fire next. Stick around for part 22, where sabotage proves you're a sabotage disaster and your survival odds tank faster than a bad reboot's IMDb score. You're still not a war casualty, which is crazier than your uncle's "Moon Landing Was Faked" podcast. The trench is a muddy death trap, reeking of gunpowder, despair. And your URL top, now a few sad fibers, screaming for retirement. Your foot's throbbing like it's got its own beef, and that ration blob's turning your guts into a chemical spill. Your decoy duty stunt, where you set a bush on fire and screamed like a budget influencer, has Mustache Man grudgingly impressed? But he's still ready to yeet you into a war crimes montage, Smokey Mateen's chain smoking, smirking like you're a live fail compilation. The squad's planning a big move, and Mustache Man's got a new torture, sabotage? You're like, sabotage, bruh? I can't even sabotage my ex's Instagram. They need you to sneak to an enemy ammo dump and blow it up. They hand you a satchel of explosives and a lighter, saying, don't cock it up. You're muttering, this is giving Mission Impossible vibes, but I'm the intern. You limp off, barefoot and bleeding, into a fog so thick it's like wading through a vape cloud. The forest a maze of roots and rocks, and you're tripping like it's your brand. Your stomach's gurgling louder than the distant artillery, and you're clenching so hard you could crush a grapefruit. You're whispering, just vibe. Just vibe, but the vibe is accidental arsonist. You find the ammo dump, crates stacked like a bad Tetris game, but it's guarded by two Germans chatting about like bratwurst or blitzkrieg. You're one loud fart away from being a hob, so you crawl behind a barrel, praying your stomach doesn't snitch. The explosives are heavy, like your student loan debt, and you're fumbling the lighter like it's a TikTok dance. You set the fuse, but plot twist. You light it too short, because finesse isn't your thing. You yeet the satchel and sprint, tripping over a crate eating mud for the 50th time. The explosion's massive, like your ego before this war, and you're crawling away as shrapnel rains down. Your tank top's gone, your foot's a bloody mess, and you're one bad boom away from a war crime. You stumble back to the trench, panning only to find Mustache Man yelling, you blew the wrong pile, you twit. Apparently, you torched their latrine supplies, not ammo. Smokey's laughing so hard he's choking on ash, same it. You're a one-man cock up factory. The enemy's pissed, but also probably constipated now, so, like mixed results. Your sabotage was a flop, and your demoted don't touch explosives duty, which you're still botching by tripping over a grenade. Your stomach's ready to yeet that ration blob, and you're realizing war's just a demolition derby you're losing. You're thinking, if I survive, I'm never playing with fire again. Spoiler, you might. The squad's prepping for a final stand, and you're praying for a time vortex to yeet you back to 2025. Your bare chest's freezing, your guts are rioting, and you're one spark away from a breakdown. The enemy's coming, and you're over this whole sabotage aesthetic. Stick around for part 23, where Final Stand proves you're a combat disaster, and your survival odds tank faster than a bad NFT drop. You're still not a war ghost, which is wilder than your cousins. Lizard people run the government group chat. The trench is a soggy death pit, reeking of mud, blood. And your tank top now a distant memory replaced by your bare, muddy chest. Your foot's throbbing like it's got its own vendetta, and that ration blob's turning your guts into a chemical war crime. Your sabotage flop, where you blew up the enemy's poop supplies instead of ammo, has Mustache Man ready to yeet you into a war crimes blooper reel. Smokey Mateen's chain smoking, grinning like you're a live Reddit thread gone wrong. The enemy's closing in, and Musty Man's barking about a final stand. You're like, final stand, bruh. I can't even stand in line at Starbucks. They shove a half-jammed rifle in your hands and tell you to hold the line. You're muttering, this is giving Avengers vibes. But I'm the intern who spills coffee. The trench is chaos. Bullets zipping, shells booming, and you're dodging like it's a dodgeball game from hell. Your stomach's gurgling louder than the gunfire, and you're clenching so hard you could crush a brick. You're whispering, just vibe. Just the vibe is game. Over screen. You aim your rifle, fire, and miracle. Hit a tree because accuracy's not your brand. Smokey's firing like he's in a Tarantino flick, while you're just trying not to shoot your own foot again. Your bare chest's freezing, and you're one bad shot away from a war crime. Mustache Man's screaming, cover the you're like, and the flank. Is that like a TikTok trend? You scramble to the side, tripping over a sandbag because gravity's your ex's meaner sibling. Bullets graze your trench, and you're screaming, "I'm too young to die. I haven't even gone viral." The squad's holding, but you're holding nothing but panic. You eat a grenade, pin-pulled this time, and it actually lands somewhere useful, blowing up an enemy position. You're low, key proud until you realize you're out of grenades and still very much screwed. Smokey's like, "Mate, you're a walking cock-up. But nice throw." Your foot's a bloody disaster, your chest's a mud canvas, and you're realizing war's just a cardio test you're flunking. The enemy's pushing hard, and you're praying for a Deus Ex Machina to yeet you out of this. Spoiler, it's not coming. You fire again, hitting nothing but your ego, and Mustache Man's yelling. Reload, you pillock. You fumble the clip, drop it in the mud, and everyone groans like you just crashed the squad's group chat. Your stomach's ready to launch that ration blob, and you're one bad shot away from a breakdown. The squad's thinning, and you're thinking, if I die, I'm haunting this trench as a TikTok phantom. The enemy's almost on you, and you're over this hole. Final stand aesthetic. You're bare, bleeding, and begging for a miracle. Stick around for part 24, where survival proves you're a luck disaster, and your survival odds somehow limp across the finish line like a Bad Reboot's post-credit scene. You're still not a war relic, which is crazier than your entire X timeline during a crypto crash. The trench is a muddy apocalypse, reeking of blood, smoke, and you're bare. Filthy chest, since you're ow. Tank top's long gone to the great laundry basket in the sky. Your foot's throbbing like it's got its own grudge. And that ration blob's finally yeeted itself out in a war crime you'll never live down. Your final stand chaos, where you somehow didn't despite flunking every war skill, has Mustache Man stunned like you're a cockroach that survived a nuke. Smokey Mateen's chain smoking, smirking like you're a glitch in the war's code. The enemy's retreating because apparently your grenade lobbing luck and the squad's actual skill were too much. You're like, bet, I'm basically Rambo now, but Mustache Man's glare says you're more dumb and dumber. You're muttering, this is giving Oscar-worthy vibes, right? But the vibe is you're lucky to be breathing. The trench is quiet. Too quiet, like when your group chat goes silent after you send a bad meme. Your stomach's empty but still gurgling out of spite, and you're clenching nothing but regret. You're barefoot, bleeding, and look like you lost a fight with a mud monster. Smokey tosses you a cigarette saying, mate, you're a walking bin fire, but you're alive. You fumble it because hands aren't your thing. And he laughs like you're his personal sitcom. Mustache Man's barking about regrouping, but you're just happy to not be a POW or a pincushion. Then, a time vortex rips through the trench, like the universe finally remembered you're not supposed to be here. You're like, yo, Wi-Fi gods? Is that you? It's the same cosmic fart that yeeted you into 1944, and now it's sucking you back to 2025. You wave at Smokey, yelling, so follow me on TikTok? As you yank through time, landing on your couch, still muddy, shirtless, and smelling like a war crime. Your phone's alive, hallelujah, and you've got 7 notifications, mostly about pineapple on pizza baits. You're thinking, I survived you. I can survive Twitter. Your foot's still a mess, but you're too tired to care. You're like, you're I'm never complaining about slow delivery again. Spoiler. You will. You check the clock, it's been like an hour in 2025, because time travel's a troll. You're realizing war's just a fever dream you barely limped through. Thanks to dumb luck and Smokey's chain smoking babysitting. You're not Rambo. You're not even the guy who refills Rambo's water bottle, but you're alive. And that's the plot twist nobody saw coming. You're itching to post about this, but survived LWUZia. AMA sounds like a fever dream even X won't buy. Your couch feels like heaven, your fridge is calling, and you're over this whole war aesthetic. You're thinking, if I survive that, I can survive anything except maybe another ration blob. The day's done, and you're the worst war hero since ever, but you're back. And that's the dumbest victory lap of all. So, folks, that's why you couldn't survive a day in Dubno Day. Because you're you, and you're a hot mess. Peace out. And don't try time travel without a charger.